Hi, guys. Today we're continuing with the second half of Chapter 5, where we will focus on graphing. Today's lesson will teach you how to graph in slope-intercept form. If you haven't already done so, make sure to get graph paper to take notes on today. If you don't have graph paper at home, there is a website where you can print free graph paper. You can find a link to this website on my virtual classroom. It's on the bottom shelf of the bookshelf. So if you need to right now, pause the video, go to the virtual classroom and print out some graph paper for today's notes and for tonight's homework. Before we graph slope-intercept form, I want to remind you what the letters stand for, and because that's going to help us with how we're going to graph. So in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, the m and the b will both be numbers. The m stands for slope. That's that slope part from the title. Slope should always be written as a fraction, and it's always the number that's in front of the x. So sometimes we'll switch the order around maybe. So you're always going to look for that number in front of the x. The reason why slope is a fraction is because it represents the rise and the run of the line that we're going to be graphing. So you need to have two numbers. You need to have a number representing how far you're going to rise. You need to have a number representing how far you're going to run. So fraction, two numbers all the time. The b in slope-intercept form is your intercept. More specifically, it is your y-intercept. So that would be where the line crosses the y-axis, and the y-axis is the vertical line. Because it's a point, we're going to write our y-intercept as an ordered pair, 0, comma, a number, and you just take the number from here. And then don't forget to take the sign with it too. So if it's being subtracted, it would be a negative number. To help you remember that the y-axis is the vertical axis, I have a B for the letter B jumping up and down. So this is just a nice little visual to help you remember that the letter B tells us how far up or down to go. Let's try some problems. Here is our first example, y equals 3x minus 2. Make sure on your graph paper to draw your coordinate planes. You need your x and y axes. It doesn't need to be too big. You could go up anywhere between 5 and 10 in every direction, okay? When we're graphing in slope-intercept form, we always start with the very last number, the negative 2 in this scenario. That will give us our starting point, a dot. So remember, this is my y-intercept, so I'm going to write it as an ordered pair, 0, comma, negative 2. And that tells me how far up or down to go. Remember the b jumping up and down. So I'm going to start by putting a dot at the negative 2 on the y-axis. So right down here. Once I have a dot drawn on my graph, then I can use my slope. So slope is directions from a pre-existing point. So if you don't have a point on your graph yet, you can't do slope. Now that I have a point, I can. And so now I'll be using my slope, which is 3. Notice that I rewrote it as 3 over 1, so that I have a rise number and a run number. Unlike ordered pairs, which always start at the origin, your slope is going to start counting from a dot. So we're going to put our pencil on the green dot. We're going to rise positive 3, so we're going to go up 3 boxes. And we're going to run a positive 1, so we're going to go to the right 1 box. Now, the really cool thing about slope is that you can actually keep going if you want to. So if I wanted to, from this dot, I could go up 3 and right 1 again, up 3 and right 1. The more points that you put on your graph, the more accurate your line will be. Now, every slope can be written in two ways. You can take the original 3 over 1, and you can change the signs of both of the numbers and rewrite it. So positive 3 over positive 1 is the same as negative 3 over negative 1. A double negative would cancel out to become a positive. Knowing that the slope can be written in multiple ways allows us to graph in multiple directions. So sometimes we might be graphing and we might run out of space and we won't be able to do the slope. And so it's important that we could do the slope in two different directions just in case the first one doesn't work. So while I could keep going up 3 and right 1, I also have the option of going -3, so rising down 3, and running -1, running to the left 1. And notice that that dot is lined up nicely with my other two dots. Okay, so you can go up and right, or you can go down and left. And those will still get you a nice straight line. For your homework tonight, I'd like to see a minimum of 3 dots on every graph. So I like your starting point, which is your y-intercept, and then at least 2 dots for slope. Practice going in both directions because you never know when you won't be able to do the first direction. Okay, I'm going to put another equation up on the screen and I will explain this equation, but if you want to, go ahead and pause the video and try it yourself first. Don't forget that we need to start with the y-intercept, which is 0, 4. And then for this slope, I can attach the negative sign to the top number. That's where we normally attach it, so -1 over +3. Or if I change both the signs of my slope, I could also go +1 over -3, and both of those will get me the same direction. Now, when you're graphing your lines, you want to be a little bit aware of what sign your slope is. So remember that if your slope is positive, you should start low and you should rise up. And if your slope is negative, you should start high and you should fall down. Okay, so just make sure that you are paying attention to that so that you're graphing in the correct direction. So this one, I have a negative slope, so I'm going to expect it to be going downward. So if you ever find yourself graphing a negative slope going upward, you accidentally made both numbers negative, which means technically you did a positive slope. All right, let's take a look at this graph. So my starting point was right here at the +4 on the y-axis. And then for my first slope, I rose -1 and I ran +3. Okay, so you're going down and to the right, down and to the right, and that's what gets it that, downward going direction. And then for my second slope, instead of going down and right, I went up and left, up and left. And so again, that blue line is a negative slope, and then the green line is a positive slope. So just a little quick mental check to make sure you're going in the correct direction. For your homework tonight in the textbook, I want you to ignore whatever the directions say, and I just want you to do what we've been doing in the video. So state your y-intercept, state your slope 2 different ways, and then graph each line with at least 3 dots. So that's what I want you to do for your homework. Again, ignore what the directions say and do what I was doing in this video. State your y-intercept, write your slope in 2 different ways, and then graph your line with a minimum of 3 dots. If you want to do more than 3 dots, that's fine, but I need at least 3 dots for each line. That's it for today.